Hello and welcome to Michelle Holden Art, where we discover our true art one layer at a time. And this week's video, I'm going to show you my glazing technique, where I use it for a few purposes. Pushing shapes back, like this one, calming areas down, and creating other shapes with the negative space. And it's a great final layer. Sometimes the pieces don't need it. For instance, this piece, I added this blue here and it created this beautiful, push that negative space down and back and brought the dots forward. So it's a really cool technique. It doesn't take very long and it really brings your abstracts together. So let's get started. Welcome to another week with Michelle Holden Art. And this week, we are going to finish up my 16 5x7s that I created. And out of the one sheet of large watercolor paper that is 140 pound. And I taped them off. And and then did each one as a whole piece and then broke them down further and further and then grouped them by 4 and did different systems, different processes to get this result. So if you didn't catch the first one, I'll leave it in the card in the upper right and you can catch up with the video. But on to this week's little technique that I wanted to show you. And I usually do this in the end, and it is called glazing. And when you're glazing, of course, I'm going to be glazing with a blue. And the palette that was this palette was turquoise. And I'm going to cool it off a little bit with the Ceruleane Blue. And it's right here, so let me move my palette over. I like to use a glass one. And if you are here for the first time, welcome. This is where we discover our true art one layer at a time with a mixed media layering process that I developed. And welcome. So the palette was yellow oxide, cadmium orange hue, transparent white, turquoise, ceruleane, and black. That's it. Oh, one last favorite of mine is the unbleached titanium. So I love to use Liquitex for these explorations, and it is a great material. It's a great paint. So in making the glaze, sometimes I just add water and just, excuse me, add the thin layer. But this time I added mostly turquoise, cooled it off a little bit with the ceruleane, and then I added the gloss medium. And I just put a little bit in here. If you're working large, and I'm planning on doing this, say, well, what if I needed a lot more? I would use any kind of cup and a little goes and pre-mix it, get it really nice and liquidy and transparent. Now, the turquoise is semi-transparent. It can be opaque. The ceruleane is a little more transparent, but what really helps it is this gloss medium and of course water. I was thinking of using the ink, but I really think it's too strong for this palette, and I really want to remain in the turquoise and the aqua. And over here you can see the last video where I finished the 4, I used pieces of this collage, and it is my favorite. so far. And what I did was just using copy paper, as you can see, using a jelly plate printer, and I prepared it, did a single solid layer, and then used this stencil over it. So I love how they're all different shapes of circles and different sizes. And I like using just a slightly different value. I believe this is the ghost print that I put on, and the ghost print part is your second pull, of course. And I love that. So I'm going to make some notes and make some more. So let's get on with this glazing. As you can see it dripping down because my table, which is a drafting table, I'm just going to put that there. I put out some black and some white, but I don't think I'm going to need them. And I just wanted to show you, well, how do you know? This is the question. What area needs a glaze? And what does a glaze do? Well, it depends which temperature. If I'm going to work with the warm layers here or the cool layers. Am I bringing forward with a stronger hue, or am I pushing back, adding a cool top layer? And that's what I want to do. Why? Because I want to integrate the shapes and create a nice flow. So I just chose a couple of these, and I'm loving this, but it's so separate. I think it would blend into this negative blue space much better if I pushed it back and added a glaze. So that's what I want to do. So I'm hoping you're close enough. I'll bring it closer. So it's just a very thin layer, very transparent. And what I do is, if the layer is too much, I love to use newsprint paper to do some lifting. And that's how much it took off. I think it took too much off, but I'm going to gradate it, meaning I'm just going to add more over here. I'm liking this warm mix on this side. Perfect. And I don't want it to be all even. This turned out really cool. I added some blue here, some glazing. But I love this peachy warm, and that's what these two colors make. You have your unbleached titanium, your orange, and your yellow oxide. Okay. So I'm just going to speed up the video so you can see the different parts that I'm glazing and the results. So and when you have a nice layer, and this has been protected by lots of coats of the gloss medium, I'm just going to put a little extra here so you can see it. Bring it close to the lens. Then I'm going to spritz it with some isopropyl alcohol. If you can see, it made a texture. So it brings together, it separates it, and it causes this really cool beading, as well as still having some blue on there and pushing back that shape. So I really like that, so I'm going to leave it just to air dry. This section here, I think I might want to bring some of that blue down, but not all the way, so I'm going to gradate it again, going dark to light. And now I'm loving that peach, but we'll see. So there's a coat there. And this is where I've said before, some really cool shapes can start happening in your negative space. And if you don't like it, you can just wipe it off. And you can wipe it off. Now you see there wasn't a coating there, so it absorbed a little bit of the blue, but I sort of like what it did. So instead of going all the way down, I'm just going to bring it. But I don't want to cover all that peach. And I'm going to lift it with the newsprint. There. So now what happened is that hard line is now softened, and I like that better. So, and of course, after we've used and followed our intuition, making our intuitive layers and using intuitive placement, we come back out of that mode, and then we step back and just see what feels right, what resonates with you. And this builds over time. Thinking. So we'll just leave that piece. This one is a really good example. So what's going on here is some beautiful, bright warm, which is really bringing out, really showing off the blue. But to me, it's a little busy. So this piece, I'm going to see if I can push this back so it's on the same plane, and it might just take away that busyness. And it did. It just eased that busyness that was going on. So now the eye can flow down, and maybe but I don't want to take too much of that warmness away. Okay, I might even add just a little bit more. Okay. You can also use paper towel, but it always leaves a mark. So I like just to use a newsprint. So that took off way too much. So I'm going to go back in. Now this has a coating, so make sure your paper has a coating first of medium so it can handle this very moist glazing layer. Okay, I think I'll spritz that. That's cool. Okay. The lines are great, but as you're going up, it's busy. So let's see what it might look like if I cool off that layer. That's a lot. You see how just that little bit changed? So let's see what we can lift. Okay. I liked it better when it was more solid and not so much blue. So there we go. So this time I will use paper towel just so I can control a little bit more. And sometimes it's tricky to get that balance. So we'll go in one more time. Yeah, that's it. And just leave that. It's also a good way to get rid of, that's these dots are from the line, what do we call it? My line tools. Oh, there they are. These. Okay. So I'm loving this real more green with the more blue and getting lots of different blues in here along with the gold. See, this one needs, you go off the edge there. So I'm going to bring that blue down just to make that line so the eye can move down. And I'll fix that piece of collage there. Now that shows up, I might even come in here a bit. And I'm going to soften those edges. It looked better going horizontal because of that shape. So that's cool. And so now it goes up. Yeah, like that a lot more. This one seems fine. Let's see what happens if I do that in there. So it took away and now created a clearer negative space, which is pretty cool. I'm taking away some of that orange. So let's see if I bring it back. Okay. So that brings out that shape. I like that. There's a nice dark blue there. So I'd like to counterbalance that. And I love these two blues together. It makes the most beautiful blue. Okay, I'm gonna go and come up. So now that clarified the horizontal. So you're pushing and pulling with your negative space. Okay, so that's basically it. These ones I found were fine. They had enough dark, they had enough blue. This here I don't want to make too solid, but up here, let's see. Oh, I like that, so I don't want to cover that too much. Okay. And even at the end, you might want to find some text, add that on, depending on how your, what the message is that you want to put across. You see this here? This is catching my eye. So that needs to be pushed back. And it depends what your background is or what your prominent color or value is. If it was mostly warm, then I would use a warm glaze. And I'm really loving this peach, but I think we could subdue that a little bit. And let's do some lifting. That's too much. And what do you think? Glazing is such a subtle thing, subtle layer. I really, really like it. So you see how that now separated? And now I created some really nice negative space, darker value, that is now going to bring the eye down. Okay. So I love it because it reminds me of my watercolor painting days. And maybe we will get into some watercolor. And I'm going to add a little bit of that cool blue over here. And I think I want to just change that shape. There. Oh, that's so much better. Now it has a more vertical feel. Yep. Cool. I won't cover the whole thing. Maybe I'll just go up to the numbers. See how that goes. Or inside here. Yes, that's good. There. So now it's part of that. And then bringing that. So I'm doing the blue up there, I'm pushing it back, so maybe this will get noticed a bit more. Okay. All right. So that is another way, just your final finishing, using glazing to push back your negative space, get rid of those flashlights, and calm things down and unifying if things are too busy. So I hope that was helpful. I'm really enjoying these. Stay tuned for next week, where we will learn some more about our mixed media layering techniques, and I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and happy creating.